I don't want you to get hung up in having everything perfect right away. It takes every single voice of this end-of-life doula realm to make it work. So we don't need you stuck at home trying to create something that's perfect before you come out. So let me share a story with you. Someone told me about a meeting to go to. They said, why don't you go to this business networking meeting? I didn't have cards. I didn't have a business name. I had nothing. I introduced myself at the meeting and said, I'm here to help anybody going through the end-of-life time period. I had a line of people reaching out to me, and I got my first clients without even a business card. So what did I do? I just gave my services away in the beginning so people could actually experience what I was doing. They wrote me testimonials, and over time I started developing the cards, the business. Everybody started getting a hold of me and saying, you need to do this, that, and the other. But actually I was already successful before I got all that in place. I completely stumbled into that, but it's a truth, and I want you to know it. Come out, get out. Don't worry about having everything in place. The number one tool of a doula. Can you guess what that is? The number one tool of a doula is you. Is the doula. That's the number one tool. It is the experience that a person has with you that is the healing, not your legacy work, not you're an RN, not you're a chaplain, not that prayer you did, not the whatever you think you're doing, it's you. It's you being present authentically with that person that is the healing force. We're talking about the ways of a doula. You don't get this in business school. You don't get this in nursing school. This is the kind of stuff that it takes time. It's the art of the practice. I could spend an hour or two and tell you funeral laws, medications, advanced directive tips. There's all kinds of things we can cover with our mind. I don't appoint you as a doula. No human does that. That's between you and God, you and spirit, you and the universe, whatever you want to call this higher consciousness, or whatever you want to call something that's bigger than you. Whatever that is, that's what has called you to be a doula. No human gives you that. What happens when you're with people like me is we validate, we share the ways, we hand down the wisdom, generation to generation. My grandmother, my aunts handed down to me my 20 years of hospice nursing, and I don't know how many, since 2005 of private end-of-life doula work. I hand all that to you. I have done massive amounts of training with other people, mentors, business coaches, sales coaches, all kinds of people to learn how to work with corporate contracts, training and education and community work and organizations. And so I pass all that to you, everything. And there are brilliant people that work with me, and they also share their expertise with us. We all share together what we know. Most of the people that are in my program, I would say, are in their 40s to 60s, late 60s, and have a lifetime of experience of something behind them, and they bring that to our group and share it with us. I can't think of anything more fun than being with a group of people with the same passion and the same calling. Doulas are really starting to take off, and end-of-life doula is a service and a role that people are valuing. We are getting a seat at the table to discuss the power of the role and what end-of-life doulas can do to bridge mainstream healthcare and death care. So healthcare, acute care is the hospitals, hospices, clinics, home health, and all of that. Death care is our hospice. Doulas bridge all the gaps. There's a lot of gaps. We already know that. There's tons of books written about it. All these people we respect talk about the gaps in healthcare. We know there's gaps in death care within hospice. Unfortunately, we don't want it to be that way, but it is. Doulas can bridge all of that. They can bridge the gaps in healthcare, between healthcare and death care, and in death care. You have this calling. What are you waiting for? I talk to people every day that say, I've been thinking about this for years but I just can't and I don't know and who am I? And I get all that because I did the same thing and I was a hospice nurse. I was an on-call nurse and I taking care of all kinds of crisis in the middle of the night, as you can imagine, in old country roads and can't see and it's raining and there's a crisis in the home and I'm by myself and I've done tons of that, years and years of that. And I was still terrified to come out as a doula in private practice. So I understand that healthy respect for wanting to do it right. So I respect anybody who says, hey, yeah, I do. I want to do it right. I want to do it in community. I want to join a group of people who are on this same path and let's sharpen each other. We all are really mentoring each other. We really are. That's what it's really all about. That whole thing of when the student's ready, the teacher appears. I get to say that every single time someone calls me to take my program. I'm like, oh boy, what am I going to learn? There are people that have been coming forward for years to want to bring into their community support and share the wisdom that we have. As a hospice nurse, as a private end-of-life doula myself, I wrote down everything that was powerfully meaningful at the end of life as a person who walks with a family. How to self-care, what the issues that are important, the things that you need to know about, way to create your practice, a way to be part of your community, leading your community, empowering your families. That's what it's all about. This isn't a medicalized version of how to walk with somebody. Create your own way, your own path. I work with people who have great ideas, who want to bring something special to the community, something they have deep inside. Every single person that serves the dying has a different wealth of gifts, wisdom, talents, education, experience. Bring that in a unique way into your community and connect with the other resources that are there, your hospices, your nonprofits, your home health agencies, personal companion companies. Tie in what you want, what you're good at, and bridge the holes in health and death care. So, as an end of life doula or guide, and let's see if this is what you've been looking for. That is why I'm here, to support families. So, this is what most people think about when they think about end of life service, when they think about creating a practice and serving their community. They're thinking about vigil. There's a lot of pieces, there's a lot of things that you can do to help a family process what's happening from the beginning of diagnosis or when things start to get hard or acknowledging that they are in advanced illness through bereavement. There's all kinds of places that you can plug in depending on your interest in your calling. One of the most special places that people love to serve is during vigil. So I'm going to say those last 3 days prior to death. And with the advent of home funeral movement, now they're uh, doing 3-day post vigils after death before cremation or burial. So I'm not going to cover home funerals here. I'm going to talk about pre-death vigil. So this is what a lot of hospices call 11th hour volunteering. They might have a volunteer program for that. Hospice is a service. Let me tell you about the different roles around someone's death. Say their imminent death, so I'm talking 3 days and under. What is available now, presently in the system? What's available now is you may be not on hospice service, not an expected death, so to speak, but you're in the hospital system. So in one of the exacerbations of the person, they're going to end up dying in the hospital. That's one way. Another way, you might be on hospice service. You're lucky enough that you have an early enough referral from a physician that sees what's happening in time, is progressive, alert, knows what's going on, and gets you onto hospice in plenty of time for you to actually get the benefit of it. Awesome physicians who know how to do that and who are aware enough to do that. So that's another way. So if you're on hospice service,
The beautiful thing about hospice service is you have a whole team approach, palliative care. You have a whole team with you. The thing is, they're in a consultancy role. They're not in a caregiver role. So you have chaplain, this doctor, the nurse, the CNAs, everybody, the volunteer, coming for an hour at a time, 30 minutes to an hour, hour and a half at a time, that in a consultancy role. Hospice is not meant to be a caregiver, and they don't, unless they have a volunteer program, like an 11th hour volunteer program or an end of life doula program, which I also help organizations develop. Unless they have something like that, um, you're just going to have visits from the various team members, and they're allowed to come up to every day. Sometimes they will stay as long as they can throughout each day. Oftentimes when I was hospice nursing, I would stay for hours if I could, or come back, do a couple of visits that day. We really do everything we can in the hospice setting to be there and be supportive and have that presence at the end. Not everybody wants us to, but a significant amount of people do. They want hospice personnel present during the dying of their loved one. It's not feasible, though. I'm just letting you know that's not what they're set up to do. They try, but they're not always able to do it. They want to, not always able to do it. So the end-of-life guides, doulas, coaches, people that are called for this special time period, they want to be there. They want to spend their time doing this. So if you're lucky enough to have somebody in your area that does this, that's the person that will plug in to this time period, this vigil time period. If that's you who wants to plug in during this time, let your hospices know you're available for this. Let them know if you're doing it volunteer basis or you're doing it for private pay. Let them know what you might be willing to work out something, maybe help them create a program. Maybe volunteer several cases a month or a year and charge for some. I mean, work it out. This is all brand new territory. Hospices want the support, and they want to bring support to their families. So they often refer all kinds of agencies to their families to do all kinds of personal care. So let your hospices know that you're around for this. The vigil time period can be if it's you can expect anything from chaos, because the death and the diagnosis and the death is happening so fast that people are just shocked and cannot believe what's happening. And so it may be really difficult for them to cope and to even get the proper care for the person and themselves, much less try to create special rituals and ceremonies. But know that in any case, if you're there, you can provide a stability and an anchor, because if you're called to this, then you're going to have that awareness, that knowing, that presence of being still, of being supportive in a practical way as well, that mindfulness, the curiosity to see what's needed, what can you do, where can you plug in, how can you pray, how can you meditate, how can you serve. Those are the questions. What do they need? What do you need? Maybe not always asking, but you're looking at the situation with those questions in mind. So during the vigil, there's a couple of camps of a couple of, of course, it can't be simple where it's always this way. And wouldn't it be nice if we just knew the answer all the time? But there's a couple of camps. One camp says that you need to create a physical boundary around the person and always have it be sacred. Sacred meaning that it's quiet, there's a physical boundary around them, only one or two people at a time, no laughing, no talking, no phones, no nothing, no eating. I mean, just, candles, music. And there is a place for that. And there are a lot of people that's exactly what they want. And that would serve families who want that and the people who would want that. So there's another camp, and that says whatever is happening, if it's comfortable for the person and that's what they want, it doesn't have to be that structured. I have seen both over 16 years, and I can tell you I've seen so much healing and um, love at the bedside when people are talking, sharing stories, laughing, crying with the person, talking to them as if they can hear, because we assume they can hear until the person's dead. We actually know they can hear. So they're being included in the conversation even if they cannot respond. That's a, you have to choose. You can't be part of both camps unless you want to say, depending on the situation, what does the family want? What do they think that person would want? And you take it from there. I have seen so much joy and laughter, healing, um, just amazing, deep presence in both types of settings. So I wouldn't get hung up on that if I were you. Just go with what feels good to you, promote what feels good to you, work with your family. It's their choice ultimately. Offer them choice and help them prepare and manifest what it is they want. So Vigil is here. The family will have their own ideas about what they want. So there are some people that will want you to take over and come bring in your brand of creativity and ceremony and ritual, and they don't know what to do, and they may feel lost, and they just know they want something special, and they're game for whatever you want to do. So have your thoughts and your ideas in hand. There'll be people that they want you to work with them. They want to do what's important to them, what's special and meaningful for the person that they love in their own family. And they might not even ask you for your input, but you can tell they're leaning on you for some ideas, but they really want to be the one in control and take over. And at any time, that's my default, is that the family is in total control. They're guiding everything. There are times when they want you to take over. When they want you to take over because they need you to, or they wouldn't ask you to. But there's more times than not that if you're a sensitive being, aware that your place is empowering them, then work with that and be in that consciousness that you're not there to take over. That's if they ask you to, or if you feel you're being drawn into that role. Let your default be curiosity, empowerment. When you see that they're searching or that they're looking for the next maybe thing to do or a new something to do during vigil, gently suggest. Um, go with what you hear them saying, maybe reframe what they're saying. Empower. Really, that's where it's at. There's so much wisdom within families. Not everybody is green to assisting others at the end of life. Not everybody forgot how to do this. There might be maybe the primary caregiver or most of the members in the circle around the family member who's dying doesn't know, but there are people, wise people in the group who do know. So incorporate the family wisdom everywhere you see it and everywhere you can. It will be a beautiful unifying blending of their current wisdom with what you know, with what we know collectively, ancient wisdom, and will be here, was, is, and always will be. That piece, encourage and empower and validate wherever you see it. Gently suggest things, but always gentle suggestion. If they take it, then you can go and help them with that. So I just wanted to kind of lay those kind of the groundwork principles to move with in a vigil. It's a very sensitive time, very special time for family. This is the last time they're going to see their loved one on this plane. Everything, they'll remember everything about this time period. Just remember that. Just have that deep in your bones that you're holding space for a time period that they will remember the rest of their life. And be part of bringing peace, be in the background, be quiet mostly, and have your toolkit of things you might want to help them with in vigil if they ask. So some things you can do with vigil. Gosh, it's just like the list can be as long as there are imagination. So like celebrants and like people who are good at ceremony, why they're so good at it is they learn the family. They learn what's important to the family, and they go with that. They develop their talks and their rituals and the things they're going to do during ceremony because they're choosing things and working with the family. So do the same thing during vigil, is learn your family. Find out what's important to the person that is dying, to the primary caregiver especially also. And develop things that are meaningful to them. You know, there's the traditional parts of ritual that are super important: lighting, music, sound, touch, anything visual. That's for the person who's dying, probably can't see that, but the other people can. These candles, you know, just pieces of ritual that go with anything, any major event and special time. Just use those and how they want to do it. Smells, aromatherapy. And so it's not rocket science. Trust your gut, trust your heart, trust your family. So if your family's saying something, they have no idea what ritual to do or what ceremony to do or what to do next. You know, you just heard them say something important that the person would like. Go with your gut and do it. Say, I just had an idea. Why don't we do this and that? And go with it. Um, You know, soft music is not for everybody. Some people might want rock and roll. Um, Not everybody hates TV. Maybe that person loved watch CNN. So they might want CNN on softly during the whole day. I've heard some people say, like I put out a video one time on bedside singers. It's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen, and all these people are talking about how amazing and beautiful it was. And then somebody wrote on there, "Gosh, if anybody ever did that, I'd come back and haunt them." You know, so not everybody finds the same thing sacred and important or special. So just go with what your family's doing. Have your own go-to things available. There's some to the more one of my first vigil that I ever went to, I was 13, and I remember the reverence in the room. There wasn't any big special things going on. We did have there was candlelight. We went in the middle of the day, and there were women sitting around the bed praying. They had veils. They were Catholic. My grandmother was Catholic. They had veils, and they were sitting and they were praying with the rosary. And when I walked in the room, I didn't know where we were going, but when we got there and I saw, I'll just never forget, I felt that energy before we even got to the room. The reverence and the majesty and the mystery. I felt it all before we even got there. And when we got in there and I saw what was happening, it took my breath away. And you can help them create that by your presence and your listening. Because when they don't know what they want, but they want something special, then that gives you an opportunity to bring in your experience and your love and your attention and create something with them so it's theirs. We want to take the focus off of us as much as possible. We don't want to be that person that came in and saved the day. That's not what this whole movement is about. This whole movement is about empowering families to take care of their own people, love their own people, bury their own people, and they can do that in wherever they live, but at least do all the parts of care as much as they want. Okay, so let's do some vigil thoughts. So during the time, a lot of times I'm just going to throw out a few ideas so that you can come up with your own things around this. But a lot of times family members are separate and they're all over the place. So you can anchor in communal time with, say, every day at 8 in the morning Pacific time. Everyone who loves, you know, John, please stop for a moment of prayer. We're going to be doing this particular meditation. Please do it with us. That will join everybody in the circle. That's one beautiful thing. And there's a lot of spin-offs of something like that. You can create in the visual space of the person, if they're still alert to see, an altar of meaningful things for that person, and have people bring things that go along with that, their feelings for that person or their connection, and keep adding to that. Even when the person is unresponsive, it's still something the family can continue. That's beautiful. There may be people that want to come and sing. Um, make sure you do, make sure, this is, okay, this is another topic, but within vigil, make sure their mouth and their eyes and their fingernails and their hands, their face, make sure that is clean. Do mouth care every couple of hours. Make sure fingernails are clean, hands lotioned, face smelling good, eyes crusties, all the fluids that can come out of every pore. We'll be doing that. So make sure people look good, smell good, hair is nice. There'll be people coming in to visit. This is the last time they're going to see them. Sometimes it's scary for people to smell some of the smells that are going on right now. The breath can smell off. It has this distinctive smell. Make sure that you keep everything nice and clean. So that's one aspect of vigil care that I want you to be very sure that you do. And one more piece around vigil. Um, Make sure that when you're there, just keep your eye out and see who may need some extra support. So maybe you're there for the primary caregiver, or maybe the primary caregiver wants you there specifically for the person who's dying and she's fine or he's fine. But you notice the granddaughter's having trouble. Go spend time with the granddaughter. Or say the primary caregiver says he or she is fine, but you notice that they need a little support. Don't be afraid to reach out. People want to be strong. They don't want to burden anybody. They want to not make a fuss usually. So it's our responsibility as those who accompany to stay curious, stay mindful, stay alert, stay present, stay focused, and just love through all of that, not with our brain. We're not doing all of this with our brain power. The focus and the paying attention, yes, that's going to be some left brain, but really open your heart, because the communication of the dying is heart, and the family, it's heart. That's what's happening, is they're communicating mostly on an emotional, energetic level. So tune into that. That's where you're going to do your best work, is tuning into that level of things. Stay out of your head. Listen to your gut. Before you go to vigil, one of the biggest things you can do for the family is to get calm and centered and do your own meditation or quiet time, whatever you want to call it, to get centered and grounded, connected inside yourself so that you can hear clearly when you're at the bedside and you're at the vigil, so that you're not projecting what you think they need, but you're truly hearing what they need. You can always ask. I think that's good for today.